everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on Death Note 15. So I have taken about a week off since watching episode 14. I'm really worried for Elle. And I wanted to get a few comments before going into this next episode. So I do have some comments from episodes 14, 13, and 12 going into this. Episode 14 just came out on Patreon yesterday, and episode 13 on YouTube. So I haven't gotten through all of the comments for 14 and 13. I'll probably have some of those to transition to episode 16, but I wanted to go ahead and watch episode 15 because what? I am worried for Elle. I am, because Rim has made the promise that she's going to kill Elle, and all Misa has to do is find Elle and know that it's Elle, and then he's dead. So I'm wondering, because Light seemed to have a revelation at the end of the last episode that he might not want Elle to die, and I joked a lot in the last episode that it was that he liked Elle. Yeah, sure. I think that Light doesn't realize that. I think in Light's brain, he's probably gotten to the point where he's like, oh, well, I don't want Elle to die because he's like my only adversary. He's the thing making this not boring, right? Because Light's just like that. So I think he realized at the end of the last episode that if Elle dies, he's going to be stuck with Misa and it's going to be boring. So I predict that maybe Light will try to not let Misa know who Elle is because she's not seen him before. So she may run into Elle at some point in this series and not realize that it's him. And Light may not tell her that it's him because he wants to keep him safe a little bit while longer. We shall see, right? But I do have some comments before we get into this. Nicola Kulik noted that the headdress Shinigami may not have had to leave the Shinigami world to check on Ryuk. And I hadn't thought about that, but they were like, oh, well, they could have just found a portal and looked down and found Ryuk without actually having to go to Earth. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Glad you brought that up. That would probably be why the headdress Shinigami we've not seen in the series since then. They just went to go check on Ryuk, kind of like what Rim ended up maybe doing. So, interesting. Some dude pointed out that Misa brings up the concept of her parents and family getting justice from Kira, which is kind of the opposite of what I was kind of ragging on Light at the beginning of this, saying, well, he doesn't know what families feel like when their loved ones die from Kira. And I was like, some dude brought up that this is kind of the reverse of that, okay, yeah, there is that happening like with Naomi and Rei, but also people like Misa, whose parents were killed by a burglar, they found justice through Kira getting rid of him. So it's like, it's just adding to the complexity of the situation, right? I still don't think that one person should get the power to pass judgment over humanity, but especially Light, but that's a whole other argument. But thank you for bringing that up. Niaj pointed out that we talked about how Kira shouldn't be a celebrity, but technically the second Kira is a celebrity. They're a model. And I was like, oh, clever. Ha ha ha. That's a nice little on-the-nose thing that the show does. Thank you for pointing that out. Alex Cornejo comments how I said in episode 12, I think, or episode 13, one of the two, that Misa was like Lilith. And Alex was like, well, could Naomi be Lilith? Because technically she was cast out by Adam and Misa would be Eve. I'm like, I can kind of see that. I think it could work both ways. I think Misa could be Eve, absolutely, because she's kind of like created, she's the second Kira, created from the first Kira. So that would make sense that she's Eve. She could also be Lilith because Light wants to cast her out really bad. He doesn't like her at all. So it could work both ways. But I kind of like the idea of Naomi being Lilith too. She had to be killed off because she was too good, right? K.A. Noted that the voice of Jealous is an actor, Matsuyama, who actually plays Elle in the live-action Japanese Death Note. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then some people on Twitter sent me pictures of the different variations of Elle in like the Korean and the Taiwan and the Japanese versions of the live action and the stage plays, and I saw a picture of Matsuyama, and he looks very convincing as Elle. I was like, I kind of want to watch that now, the live action, just to see. I don't think I'll watch the Japanese live action as a reaction, but I would like to maybe watch it on my own time when the series is over, just to see him play Elle and to hear that voice. That voice is so sensual. I'm like, I'm attracted to voices. And so I'm like, oh, that sounds really good. So I like Jealous's voice in this an awful lot. But so that'd be cool to see him as Elle. So thank you, K.A. The truck noted that Rim's comment, because I was questioning about lengthening the lifespans, because we talked about how humans can't lengthen their lifespan by using the Death Note. the truck kind of clarified this, so thank you, that Rim's comment about lengthening lifespan was the fact that if Rim kills Elle, and Elle was destined to kill Kira, because Elle did say they would execute Kira. Now, whether Elle would actually be responsible for Light's death or not, we don't know at this point. But what the truck says that Rim was noting was that if I kill Elle and Elle was supposed to kill you, by extension of that, it's going to lengthen your lifespan. So if that's what happens, so be it. And I'm like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. That makes a lot more sense. I like that. So, and then finally, Be Happy noted two things here. That one, Misa's death note. I didn't talk about it in the last episode, but I did notice the writing on the front was a different language. It wasn't in English. I assumed it was Japanese because I didn't look that closely. But Be Happy noted that it might be in the language of the Shinigami. That could be. It would make sense that Jealous just had just a typical death note. Ryuk intentionally made it English because he wanted anybody to be able to pick it up in the most universal language. But that wouldn't apply to Misa because she was given it from Rim. So she probably doesn't even care what's on the front of it. So that all makes sense. And finally, Be Happy noted that L's saying that he was Light's friend may have been a strategic move to kind of lure Light out. I don't know how I feel about that. I like to think that Elle was being genuine in saying that you are my first friend, and I hope you're not Kira, because otherwise I'm going to kill you and it's going to really suck, you know? I feel like Elle was being a little bit genuine there. We've seen him be compassionate towards people, even though they're both geniuses. We've seen Elle be compassionate about Naomi and about, you know, the one guy that died because of Misa. He's shown compassion. So now, could it be both? Could he be like simultaneously being sincere and also it being a way to try to outlight? Sure. But I don't like the idea of thinking that Elle wasn't sincere in that moment, because that kind of, it fits Elle's character for him to be, and it's nice contrast to Light, who is up until now not sincere at all. So I don't know how I feel about it, but we'll see, right? But anyway, those are my notes. I'm pretty excited to see what goes down in this episode, and I hope you all are too. So I watched the English dub. It was really good for this episode. We'll talk about it in the OP, but we're going to start episode 15 of Death Note, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Wow, so that went not at all how I could have possibly predicted it going. I can't believe Misa already gave up the Death Note. I can't believe it. We see her for a solid 5 episodes, and she's already given up the Death Note, which I don't think this is the last we've seen of Misa at all, mainly because Rim's still around. Whoa. Wow. Things really are getting interesting. Oh man. Okay. So we need to go through this. Because Elle doing some questionable things that are going to seem even more questionable now that this is all going on. So I feel like I need to do Light versus Elle in this case, and to tell like the pros and cons of where we're at with their character and what they're doing. Because yeah, it got really close this episode to not only Elle being found out and dying, but also to Light being found out. And I think that the scales, with Misa's decision to give up the Death Note, the scales very much tipped in Light's favor. Very much. And we'll talk about why. But we're going to put Elle Ryuzaki here. And there's a few times I thought that Misa was going to slip up and say his name, but she didn't. And so I'm like, and then I'm going to have Light over here. Okay. And then we'll have our dear sweet Misa, old Misa over here. Girl. I mean, it makes sense at this point that the mangaka, that the author was like, we need to get her out of being in the running to be second Kira, because it was going to come out eventually, or she was going to die. And I think it's probably for the better for Elle that she didn't die, that Rim didn't kill her, because, I mean, they could have pinned it on Kira. They could have said it was Kira making sure that she died so she didn't spill anything. But also, and that, here's the thing, man, that the episode called WAGER, Yeah, if Misa had died in custody, Elle had set it up for Light to take the fall along with her, because he basically told Light out loud, being like, we've taken her into custody. So if Light killed her before she could spill, that would be immediate cause for Elle to arrest Light and be like, look, she died, and I told you, you're the only one that knew she was in custody, so that automatically pinpoints you to being Kira. Elle's making some bold moves in this, but again, some of the moves I understand, because Elle was about to die, so he's like, I've got to go all in, otherwise I'm going to die. But then there's a couple things I'm like, ooh, are we gonna call him out for it? I think we are. And several of you, when I started this series about Elle, y'all didn't spoil me, but some of you were like, don't judge Elle just yet. And I don't want to judge him fully, much like I know I've judged Light, but he makes it so easy to. But there are some questionable things Elle does here that I'm like, okay, all right, we'll go through this. But man, did not anticipate things to go the way that they did. I'm so curious. So let's tie back to the beginning of this. Let's tie back to the beginning of this episode. And when she's like, so when should I kill him? Oh my gosh. Again, Light, you can turn on the light in your room. It's okay. Your parents don't have to think that you're getting it on with Misa, although Misa would have liked that, right? Rim's like, you can take me where he is and I'll kill him immediately. And he's like, well, it should be done as soon as possible, but let's be smart about this. Let's do it tomorrow. But it's too soon to make a decision now. He's like, let me give you an answer after I find a way to kill him tonight. And she's like, okay, sure. No matter what, he says, don't kill until I say so. Got it? Got it, no matter what. So there is like a double meaning there. On the surface, obviously, Light wants to make sure, Light wants to be in control, right? Light is a control freak, right? So he wants to maintain control. He wants to maintain control of the situation and be like, look, you don't do anything until I tell you to. Absolutely, right? He's like, I need to control something in this situation. I can't control Misa, so I need to control you at least. And Rim's like, fine. Only for Elle, though. So Rim makes the comment, and I'm going to put Rim over here. Rim says that she would only kill Elle for Light. That's the only one she's going to cave for. She's like, I don't care about anybody else, but Elle, that's the only one I'm going to give you regard to. That's it. And he asks Misa for her cell phone number. And she, bless her heart, she assumes, she's like, give me yours. And he's like, no, I can't. And she's like, but we're lovers. And I'm like, girl, you have missed everything he's told you, haven't you? Misa, it's probably for the best that she got rid of the Death Note, because she was getting way too caught up in this. And girl, stage 5 clinger, I'm like, he has told you repeatedly that he can't be your lover, that he was pretending to be your boyfriend, that you're not really in a relationship. And it goes in one ear, out the other, overhead. It circles everywhere around her brain except sticking. She's still convinced that her and Light could be lovers. And Light's like, am I gonna have to just shut you up? I don't know, he doesn't like her at all. And I just love that Light's like, I told you, I'm under surveillance. This is not going to work. They can listen to my phone conversations. Like, I want to be able to call you, but I don't want you to call me every 5 minutes and be suspicious. And then I think it's interesting that she has multiple cell phones. Like, what a handy thing, right? She has multiple cell phones. On the surface, Misa would be an amazing accomplice to Light. On the surface, she has multiple cell phones for multiple jobs. She has like a pretty high profile persona, but that also kind of gives her it gives her a little bit of exclusive access to privacy, because she can make the excuse that she's a model, so she needs to maintain her distance from the public. Can work that way. She also is pretty smart and covers her bases for the most part pretty well. Not as we find out with Elle, not completely, but for the most part. If she were just not so chaotic and would listen to Light and let it soak in, I think it might have been able to work out really good. But I think it's just case in point that you can't control the will of people. That as much as Light can use the death note to control people and how they die, but he can't control them, and he can control them leading up to that death, but other than killing them in the end, he can't control people. And so it's an important like little thing that free will has a big handle in all of this. And he's like, oh, that's a good idea. Cool. Using your phone would be all right. So she gives him one of the cell phones to use, and so Light's phone will not be in the equation at all. It's just her cell phones. Okay. How convenient. And she's like, I'll call you every day and send you lots of texts. And he's like, no, I'm keeping it off. Girl, if she wasn't so head over heels and in love with him and love struck, the red flags of Light not caring are so all over the map. Like him being like, I'm keeping my phone off. I'm like, not answering your phone calls at all. I'll just call you when it's convenient. The red flags were all there, but she is blinded by love and just cannot see it. It's amazing. I'll be the only one making calls, and I'll tell you what you need to know. So again, maintaining that control. You don't get any control, Misa, in this. It's all me. You are just my little minion, and you will do what I tell you to and not question it. And Misa's like, okay. And she's like, when are you going to call? And she has like little tears in her eyes. She's like, when are you going to call? And he's like, probably tomorrow. I'll call once, even if I decide not to execute Elle. And she's like, oh, good, tomorrow. It doesn't sound like something a boyfriend would call about. I love, she's like, oh, you're calling about another guy. I mean, boyfriends don't usually do that, but that's okay. I'll forgive you. I love that she's like, but we can talk about love afterwards. And he's like, Misa, go home. he's like, I don't want to listen to this. He's like, go for a day. And she's like, it's only 7 o'clock. And he's like, we're not staying up till 11 talking every day. The time for love has just begun, isn't it? And he just goes, just exhales and closes his eyes. She's like, we can go to dinner, look at the night sky, and after that, the main event. Meaning that she was wanting to get it on with Light. Yeah, And he's like, Misa. And he straight up kisses her. Now, granted, I mean, it was not a suave kiss. It was a pretty, like, I'm taking a picture of it. The one proof Light kisses one person in this entire series. It'll probably be the only time it happens. But him just, like, kissing her, like, the one time. And it wasn't just, like, a clunky goop, like, kiss. And she's like, oh, but she's in love with him. So, for her, that was a pretty big deal, right? And I love Rim and Ryuk just standing on either side of them being like, well, this is awkward. I wasn't expecting this. And then he's like, God, I had to do that to shut her up. And he's like, got it? Go home. And she's like, okay. Like, that got her. And then he's like, just do exactly what Ryuk and I do. Just whisper and make sure nobody's around. That way you're not suspected. Like, just do as I do, right? And she's like, okay. And she's just love-struck, like walking away with the blush. And the sister being like, come again. Oh, my God. And then, of course, he, like, locks the door. And I love that Ryuk's, like, looking out, Ryuk watching her walk away with Rim. Oh, Ryuk making sure that they get away. Oh. And he's like, that kiss was so sudden it surprised me. And he's like, I need to keep Misa deeply in love with me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good thing that does the trick for you, right? I'm like, Light, you are so lucky, because even the girl at the university, she's kind of like, really? This is it? I'm just following you around. We're not doing anything? Okay. But I'm like, Light is so lucky that the girl that is madly in love with him, that one kiss shuts her up. I'm like, you're so lucky. Like, and that keeps her deeply in love with him. I'm like, any other girl that wasn't completely love struck with you would probably be like, I'm still not going. I'm still not leaving. Thanks for kissing me. But so do we want to skip dinner in a movie and just stay here? Like, he's very lucky that worked out for him. Right. And I like that Ryuk's like, oh, I like that Ryuk's like, yeah, it's good that worked for you. That's all you needed. I need to decide if I should kill Elle tomorrow. Ooh, it's thundering outside. Ooh, got some stormage. Yeah, L hasn't made himself public yet, so if Ryuga dies, I'll be an even greater subject. Yeah, so going through this, Light, again, these are two geniuses combating each other. So Light realizes that L has not gone public. So thus, anybody that would learn his name is the only people that know about L and what he even looks like are the task force and Light. So and we've established that second Kira may just need to know a name and not need to know a face. So they may just need to see. The thing that's the most bonkers about all of this is that the task force, and I'm going to put the task force down here. I'm going to put the task force down here. The thing that's the most bonkers about all of this is the fact that they know practically nothing about Kira. Still, all they know is that Kira can control people to an extent before they die. At least that is the theory that L has, and that Kira can determine the time, and I think they've determined that he can do the cause of death. I think maybe that cause of death hasn't been figured out by the task force yet, but I'm going to put it on there anyway. But they at least know that he can determine the time that they're going to die and something leading up to their death. And that's pretty much it. But they don't know anything about the Death Note. They don't know how the Shinigami eyes work. They don't know how it works when the Death Note's given up. There's so much they don't know. And so that makes it so hard for them to pin it on Light and to come to a determinate conclusion about Kira. There's still so much they don't know. And I'm like, okay. All right, interesting. Let's see how this works. And so Light smartly realizes, if I don't do this right, he's like, I want to kill L, but if I kill him right now, I'm going to be suspect number one because I'm the only one outside the task force that knows anything about L. So I've got to be careful how I do this. Like, yeah, he wants to kill L, but he wants to do it without pinning suspicion. And then Ryuk, I'm going to put over here, Ryuk is like, oh, I thought you were hesitating because he said that you were his friend. I want to put Ryuk over here because I do think Ryuk maybe is going to call out Light's bullshit just a little bit. He's like, he questions the relationship between L and Light. And I do not mean relationship as in romantic or sexual, because I don't think the relationship between L and Light is romantic or sexual. I like to joke that it is, because there's some situations, like we'll talk about in this episode, that if you just tweaked it a little bit like a BL, it would work. But I don't think that that's their relationship at all. I do think they're soulmates. I think that they are frenemy soulmates, that they are on the same level intellect-wise and maybe morally. We'll get to that. But they're on the same level, and they view themselves as the most worthy adversary each other can have. So it's not unlike to say that Ryuk wants to keep Light around. He wants to keep Light around because he finds Light to be someone that he can talk to and somebody that understands him. They understand each other. They're very similar. They've been that way since the start of this. So we'll talk more about that when we get into this a little bit deeper. But I like how Light is like, friend, I was just playing along. No. I love and we don't see his eyes at all during this. They're all covered, right? We don't see Light's eyes. He says, from the beginning, I said that it's friendship he wants, then I'll give it. He did say that. Light has a point. He did say at the very beginning, he's like, oh, if he wants to become friends, we'll become the best of friends. And it was all a charade, right? And I like that it goes to Ryuk. It like cuts across Ryuk, where he's like, he says, Ryuga is Light Yagami's friend on the surface, but L is Kira's enemy. And that's the thing. And I'll kind of put up here that Light is L's friend, but Kira is his enemy. And vice versa. It could be that L is Light's friend on the surface, but L is also Kira's enemy. So, yeah, sure. It's on the surface, right? Mm-hmm. And I love that it gets like, he has like the red glow and everything. And the way that they describe the precipices that each of them stand on is so intriguing. I do want to make note that Light, when he's standing in his mind on the precipice, his hair's a lot flatter and he looks a lot more grim and not as attractive on top of the precipice. And I don't know if that's Light's own psyche and his own vision of himself, that he doesn't view himself like that. So that's curious. He says, L is my enemy. Yes. He's like has to convince himself. Yes, L is my enemy. Sure he is. I like that the precipice he has, it's intriguing how they draw the precipices. Light, I want to get an idea of what shape that is. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's octagon. So for Light, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can't draw an octagon to save my life. Let's see here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, there's the octagon. There we go. It was like, it's been a while since I had to draw an octagon. So yeah, so I like that Light, for Light, it's all like, it's wood. It's a wood top, and it is an octagon, which is very symmetrical, very even. Yep. And I wanted to see how it was designed, right? It looks like this rotating thing. He says, if L dies in an accident, almost no one will suspect me. So yeah, I mean, so I guess the cause of death maybe has not been figured out by the task force yet. We'll just question mark that. I'd have to go back and rewatch when they were figuring things out. But, so it's like, if I make it an accident, almost nobody will suspect me. And even if they do, there's no evidence. I can only imagine what would happen after L dies. This is all a wager now. Okay, so they're all like little windows. So they've just got like little, so it almost looks like a tower, right? And these are windows. Windows, and it looks like a tower or a skyscraper. Which, that fits Light very well, because Light is kind of like, views himself as this colossal monolith. So Light's like, there's all these windows, like windows to the soul, like where he's looking and observing at all times. But he's observing at all times, but it's all like a streamlined, straight tower, and it makes him look like a monolith. Very fitting of Light's ego. I like how he portrays himself. And then he's like, tomorrow will be L's. No, Ryuzaki Ryuga's last day. And it cuts over to the tower that he's standing on. And if you look, the tower that L is standing on is much more narrower and thin. Like, it's not as robust as Light's, because he views L on the same wavelength as him, but not as good, right? I love that transition of the way that Light proceeds to think of L, and then cutting to L. And the hair. I love, he's just so cute. He's like, hair. Like, he's just so quirky. I love it. It's great. And he's just sitting over there looking at the different piece of evidence. And he's like, snack crumbs. And they're all like, we've been sitting here for hours watching you go over those baggies, but it's okay. And he's like, hair. Just the way he says it is really cute, and can't help it. And then L says, if I die within the next few days, your son is Kira. And just drops that bombshell in their lap. And then goes, another hair. Like, just stops what he's doing casually and is like, oh, hey, by the way, if I die, your son's Kira. No big deal. Just letting you know. And Chief Yagami's like, wait a minute, what? He's like, what'd you just say? And they're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, I'll make sure you have ready access to Atari. Like, he's like, I'll give you my butler. It'll be fine. If I die, you're in my will. So he says that if he dies soon, then Light is Kira. So I guess L's like, are we friends or not, Light? I told you my secrets. Are we friends or are we not? And he's like, I'm counting on you. He's just like, if I die, just carry on the mission. It's fine. And Chief Yagami's like, the fudge? So he did say he would hand over access to Watari. From Misa's conversation with Elle, we can assume that he is not a possessor of a death note yet. We'll talk about that because she could see his lifespan. We'll catch up on that. And he's like, Ryuzaki, he's like, you said that he was almost entirely cleared. I want the truth. It's like, oh, Chief Yagami, come on. He said almost entirely. He's like, how likely is it that he says, even I don't know how I truly feel. This part's interesting. He's just going on pure deduction. He's like, this has never happened before. But if Kira and second Kira are working together, I'm in big trouble. So at this point, he's basically going completely off instinct. He's going off instinct and he's frazzled. Which, yeah, you have a genius who's capable of doing these amazing deductions, and suddenly he's come to face with the idea that it's a very strong possibility he could die soon. And so he's like, I'm winging it at this point because I'm going off my instinct because I am not calm. He's like, I might not be analyzing the situation calmly. He's like, no, I'm stressed and I'm freaking out. Even though he's calmly like taking a sip of coffee or tea as he's doing this. He's like, I might be considering him a suspect because there's nobody else. Which, God, that's such a tie back to the last episode when Light was like, I'm the only one good enough to be Kira and be a suspect. And Elle's basically confirming that. He's like, well, I don't think there's anybody else that could be him other than Light. It's like, you two, on the same wavelength. What the fudge? He's like, despite that, if I'm killed now, please assume that your son is Kira. And they're like, because yeah, I mean, who else could it be? I have no choice but to make a surprise attack. It can't be helped. This is all a wager now. And so they both, because they're soulmates, they both come to the determination that it's all a wager now. He's like, Light is like, I've got to be cautious and make this wager with Misa and do things as carefully as I can. And on the converse side of it, Elle is like, I have to be bold now and gamble a lot because otherwise I'm dead. He's like, it's all a wager. I have no choice but to gamble. And for Elle, it seems like he's not used to that. He's not used to gambling. He's like, I don't like this, but what can I do? This is interesting. The way that he designs his tower is so much different than Light's. His tower, it looks like this. It has like a railing around it, right? It has a railing that goes around it all the way, and he's inside. I do like that it has like a little cross in the middle. Ha ha, look at that. And then it has these grates. Like the panel itself is a cross, but then there's these grates around it so you can see through it. And on either side there's these little beacons, right? These little cameras and lights. And then he has like a ladder on either side leading to the next tower, and it just keeps going down like that, and it just keeps going down. That's fascinating to me how different they are, and I feel like, and then there's a pillar in the middle holding it together. I feel like there's a symbolic representation there because Light's tower is a solid, sturdy, unmoving pillar that kind of, it's octagonal. It's octagonal, so it's symmetrical, but it has corners, it has angles to it, right? And there's all the windows in it that kind of like peer in to be observing. But it's fascinating how that structure is compared to Elle's, which is very open and has like multiple ladders to get out multiple ways and has the different lights and signals on it at all times. It's like a crow's nest kind of, where you can kind of view from multiple angles and see all around him, but it's very open, and Light's is very closed. So the way that they're designed is so drastically different. It's fascinating, right? I feel like it suits Elle though that he's always got multiple ways to escape, whereas Light doesn't predict escape is necessary, right? Elle has all these means of escaping and getting to different levels and going wherever he needs to and having the things to see all around him. Light's tower, there's no ladder, there's no door, there's nothing. So he's on top of the precipice and doesn't intend to go anywhere. The only way out is to jump. The only way out is to jump to his death. That's it. And to fall. That's the only way out. L has ladders. He can climb down and escape if he needs to and scurry away for another day. Light does not have that option. It's like I either stay on top or I fall to my death. I think that's like so integral to their characters. It's fascinating. But I love that. I'm going to take a picture of that little shot of him up on the tower. Yeah. So then we go to the university. This whole scene is the most amazing thing. It's so bonkers. And so he's like, I'm just not good at dealing with things. And then he stops and sees Elle. So he's on this date with this girl. And she's like, what's up? And he's like, and then there's, and Elle's just reading his little book, right? Just reading his little poetry book. And then I like that he's like, oh, Yagami-kun. What a bean. What a bean, right? And we'll talk about this bean, but man, what a bean. He's like, oh, Yagami. He's like, hello, Moshi Moshi. And then when he says hello, I want to get a picture of him just because his hello, he's like, oh, hey, Yagami-kun. Hello. Oh, it just, what the fudge? Why was that hello so, like, sad? And Light's just like, God, I hate you. So, this episode does establish that Elle can be an actor, too. Elle can be an actor as well. Light, we've known Light's been an actor this whole time because we've been following Light and he's been putting up a facade for like 90% of the time. But this episode really highlights that Elle can be quite the actor, which, yeah, maybe the whole friend thing is, I do like to think that, and this is to kind of go off Be Happy statement, I don't want spoilers, damn it, or hints or clues, so don't be doing any of that in the comments, please. But I do think that to an extent, Light and Elle, they don't realize it or they don't fully understand it, but they are friends. They just don't want to admit it. And so I do think there is some genuineness there, even though these two idiots can't quite fully realize it. But I just like that Light's like, I'm going to go talk to him. I don't want you near him. And she's like, why can't I come talk too? Which granted, Light doesn't want to make her a suspect in all of this. He doesn't want to get her involved. But I just love that how these girls deal with Light and keep hanging out with him. I mean, he's hot. I guess that's the reason. But I'd be like, you're kind of a dick. No, bye. I guess because he's good looking. They're like, sure, I guess I'll tolerate you being weird and not romantic. And he's like, oh, is that okay for you to leave her? And he's like, more importantly, didn't you say you weren't going to appear in front of people? And he's like, are you all right? He's like, well, as long as you're not Kira, it's okay. He's like, I'm going to hold you up to what you just told me, right? You said you weren't Kira, so it's fine. He's like, you're the only one outside who knows I'm Elle. So and then he just drops Elle's big thing is Light works in the shadows and he makes everything so secret. And Elle is the total opposite. Elle is like transparent. So Elle is transparent with Light. And Light, conversely, is very secretive. Is secretive and cautious with Elle. Because Light has all to lose, right? Light has everything to lose. If he slips up just once, he's caught. Elle kind of has more freedom in this moment because Light doesn't know his real name. He can't kill him. So he has a little bit more freedom. And for Elle, the best thing to do is just get ahead of the game. It's like he said in the tennis match, the one who makes the first move wins, right? And so he's making the first move. He's going to try to get to Light before Light can get to him. It's the tennis strategy all over again. He's like, well, I told everybody that if I die, I'm going to assume you're Kira. And Light's like, damn him. And then Elle's like, what you gonna do about that? He's like, you told me that you've been lonely because I've taken breaks from school. Is that why you got a girlfriend? So I came out for a change of pace. Wow, as long as you don't die. As long as you don't die, college is a fun place. That line kills me. I crack up with that. And I love the symbolism here with there's Elle crouched on the bench like a little frog, looking up at Light. But it's funny because if you look at the visual, Light looks like he's looking down upon Elle, and Elle's in the weaker position. But from what he just said, Elle just established himself as being a little bit ahead and in charge of the situation at the moment. If you don't die, college can be a fun place. And then Light's like, yeah, when you're not here, it's so boring because there's no one who can match my level of conversation. That's the crux of it. That Light doesn't necessarily want to kill Elle, maybe not because they're friends, or so he thinks, but because Elle's the only one that can match him. So it's a game. If either one of them is lost, then they can't keep up the game. There's no fun anymore, right? And Elle's getting caught up in the game too, right? Elle's getting caught up in all of this. And he's like, oh, that's why you're dating that brilliant girl. And he's like, well, something like that. And so I do like this establishment as well, that this is the first time it's really been established that we see the Shinigami. The Shinigami have been there the whole time. Because up until this episode and the cafe scene in episode 11 or 12, I think episode 11, up until those episodes, Ryuk was always with Light. So you always knew that Ryuk was there no matter what. But in this episode, when he was there in the university in the last episode, and when he was there walking with the Miss University girl, we didn't see Ryuk. And so I like this show just now establishes that, yeah, no, even though you don't see Ryuk all the time, he is there. We just, the creator chooses when to add him into the shot. And he's like, should I kill him today? And Light is like, no, as soon as I decided to kill him, he suddenly appears as if to distract me. He's like, no, it's all just intentional, right? To prevent me from killing him. He's like, no, Elle's just doing this to keep me from killing him. He's trying to throw me off my game. He's like, I need to kill him. I need to get it over with. It's like, this is what he wants. So Light is like, if I don't kill him, that plays into exactly what Elle wants me to do. So he's like, if I do kill him, yeah, I might be a suspect. Maybe he's bluffing. Maybe he's not. But in any case, I need to go through with it to not give him what he wants. It's like, ooh. And he's like, shall we have some cake in the cafeteria? And he's like, sure, my next lecture was canceled. He just left the university girl. He just left her. He was like, yeah, my lecture's canceled. I mean, I was going to hang out with her, but let's go eat cake. But here's the thing. Here's the thing with that. He could have left Elle. He could have been like, no, I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of leaving with you and hanging out with you. No, I'm going to go hang out with this other girl. Bye. Can't resist, right? And then he's like, that's good. He's like, I wonder if they'll have shortcake. So confirmed. Well, now that Misa doesn't have the death note and she doesn't technically know what Elle looks like anymore, maybe if she sees Elle, they'll become friends. I don't know. I'm just like, what? He's like, who knows? And then she's like, Light, there you are. And she's like, I came because I had a photo shoot nearby. And he's like, Misa, you idiot! That face, the look between them where Light is like, what the fudge? And Elle's like, oh! From here on, it's 100% bonkers. She's like, is this a friend of yours? He's so unique and cool. See, she would like him. So maybe, after she's done getting tortured and gets released, maybe after she can befriend Elle, maybe, I don't really see it happening because Elle was like literally torturing her. We'll talk about it later, but I'm like, I wish she could become friends with Elle. She's so tiny, like seeing her stand next to Elle and Light, even though, here's the thing, I think if Elle stood up at full height and wasn't like, and his posture was better, I think he'd be as tall as as Light is. I think if Elle stood up straight, he would be either as tall or a little taller than Light. But that hunched posture just makes him look smaller and less threatening. But yeah, she's so tiny. But Light, he's like, no, I've won. He's like, Misa can see Ryuga's real name. I want to get a picture of this. He's like, no, she can see the name. I'm like, oh my God, that it's funny because her hair is blue in this, which connects to L, but her eyes are red, which connect to Light. She's the middle ground between them. But he's like, Misa can see Ryuga's real name. And she's like, I'm Light's girlfriend, Miss Amani. Pleased to meet you. And he's like, I'm Hideki Ryuga. And she's just like, oh. And she's like, Ryuki. So, okay. So we see there were 3 numbers or something there. There's like a 75, 23. I want to get those first 3 numbers. Tell me them. I want to know the number. And he's like, oh, I'm Hideki Ryuga. And she's like, what? No, wait. And so it was 75. So wait, it was 75,231,362. That's more than Light's, wasn't it? And of course, Light blocks it out so we can't see his name. Damn it. Of course. I should have known at that point when we didn't see his name that we weren't going to see his name, because now that she's forgotten everything she learned while having the Death Note, and I'm assuming with the Shinigami eyes, that she's going to forget his name. Oh, damn. Yeah, he has the same first name and last name as that idol. And she's like, what? He's like, isn't that funny? And she's like, but it's different from the name I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. And then Light's like, you just made a big mistake. They're at each other's throat like chess move after chess move, because Light's like, you just made a big mistake, right? But then L laughing, being like, no, you just made the big mistake, because I'm going to have her arrested, because Light didn't know about the hair and the crumbs and everything. It's like back and forth, this cat and mouse. I'm glad Misa's not going to be involved, hopefully, anymore, honestly. Oh my God. I want to back up just a little bit and get a picture of just them together. Oh my God. Like, just everything here is so freaking good. There's so many good shots in this episode. It's wonderful. But if he's guessed that she's the second Kira, there's no way he'd be laughing. And he's like, Yagami. And I love the little sweat drop on Light's face, like, yes, I'm jealous. And they're like, oh, so yeah, jealous of her. Yeah, I don't see either of them as being into Misa at all. But I like they both flinch, like, wait, you have feelings towards Misa? And he says, I've been a huge fan of yours since the August issue of 18. And I love that she's like, really? I'm so happy. And Light's like, what the fudge? Like, that's letting Light know that he researched Misa and he knows who she is. That was perfect. And then everyone around them notices that it's Misa. And Light's just like, what the fudge? But yeah. And God, it was perfect. All of this, that's the one girl, the girl with the short hair is the girl that liked L in the tennis match. But that's so perfect. Like, L, it's such a parallel to the episode where Light uses Matsuda when they're around town. He used Matsuda so that he wouldn't seem obvious in the crowd. L does the same thing. He used Misa's identity because he's researched her and knows who she is, used her identity to create a crowd in a scene so he could pickpocket her phone without anybody noticing it. Genius. It's the parallels are amazing. And she's like, oh, thanks, I'll do my best. And I like that Light's like, what's going on? Light having no clue. And then she's like, oh, who touched my butt? And then I just got L's face. L is such an actor in this. L being like, oh, how disgraceful. I won't forgive anyone who takes advantage of this situation. Like, he just dances around her like a damn toad. What the fudge? And he's like, I'll find the culprit. I love that Light looks at him like, you're so full of shit. God, and she's like, oh my, I've got to get, this is just amazing. Absolutely amazing. And then she's like, Ryuga, you're so funny. I want to get a picture. I'm going to show you all this picture of, she's like, Ryuga, you're so funny. And he's like, he's like, so cute. And Light's like, I've had enough. The two thorns in his side have met. And oh my God. And they're like, somebody said I want to touch her too. I'm like, leave her alone. He's like, I need to ask Misa L's name. But here's the thing, if Light actually was able to get a hold of her and told her that was L, she's so chaotic. would she have gave the name to him, or would she have been like, oh, I really like him, can't we keep him as a friend? Like, I don't know, we'll never know, right? But it's just funny that Ryuga, that Elle and her hit it off like right off the bat, right? These people are in the way. And so then the agent shows up, right? And she's like, it's time. And she's like, are you planning to be gay? And she's like, oh yeah, sorry, Yoshi. So I like they're both like both Light and Ryuga and Elle kind of look at her go with her agent, like, okay. And then Light's like, okay, good. She's getting out of the crowd. I'll call her, get Elle's name, and kill him with the little piece of the death note in my wallet. And she's like, see you after work, Light. Bye. Oh my God. Amazing. And he's like, so shall we go? I like that Elle turns around like, shall we go, Yagami-kun? Shall we go get cake? That was cool that we met your girlfriend. Can we go get cake now? And he's like, yeah, I've just got to go to the bathroom first. I like that it's like, that's the most suspicious thing. Like, right after everybody leaves, he's like, hey, I got to go to the bathroom and then we'll go get cake. And Elle's like, sure, okay. God, the phone scene. The phone scene is so amazing. And then I love the fishbowl of them walking by. And it's very akin to Naomi. It's that same vibe of Light watching Elle walk away is similar to Light watching Naomi walk away and him being like, I'm going to kill you now. And it's like, before he figured out that she had an alias and it wasn't her good name. Such a fake out. I love it. But then, yeah, he makes the call. And like, I love how dramatic this show makes it. He's like, it's been fun, Elle. Oh, I love it. I'm glad that I could discover your name and kill you myself. He's like, if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be me. Mm-hmm. So, okay, we get the thing of the death note. I feel like these are rules from the very beginning that we are getting now. Even after the individual's name, time of death, and death condition on the death note were filled out, the time and condition of death can be altered as many times as you want, as long as it is changed within 6 minutes and 40 seconds from the time filled in. But of course, this is only possible before the victim dies. So you can write down how you want them to die, but you can alter it as long as it's before the victim dies. Okay. Seems interesting. All right. I guess that makes sense. You can change it if you decide to do it a different way, but the result's going to be the same. Whenever you want to change anything written on the death note within 6 minutes and 40 seconds after you wrote it, you must first rule out the characters you want to erase with 2 straight lines. Oh! So you have to, it's kind of like an editing thing. In order to change it, you have to do 2 straight lines through what you want altered and then write what you want instead after that. Okay, so if you just do 1 line, it's not enough because a 1 line could be an accident. It has to be a deliberate 2 lines to change it. Okay, good to know. Good to know. I'm curious if like Ryuka's told Light all of these rules. If that's a thing. It's been fun, Elle. I'm glad I could discover your name and kill you myself. And then, yeah, God, the phone scene where it just rings and it's behind him. For a second, I thought that it was going to go to voicemail. Like her agent told her like she can't answer the phone while she's modeling. And so she like turned her phone off. I thought that's what was going to happen. But no. I love that we hear it. And it's the theme song. It's the OP. Which makes sense because after the OP changes, we're not going to get, damn it, anymore. And he has the phone. He has the phone. Oh my God. I just kind of love it. I love that Elle looks like a kid in a freaking candy shop. He's like, oh, look at what this is. Oh my God. Like, looks like a kid in a candy store. Like, he's just so full of glee. His glee is very different than Light's glee. Light's glee looks menacing and terrifying. Elle's is cutesy, which is, it's interesting. He's like, hello? They're standing so near each other that you could obviously hear. It's like, you two are the biggest idiots. But I love how angry Light is. He's like, what do you mean, hello? You grumpy cat. God, the imagery. I want to see this in the manga so badly because the imagery is just so freaking funny. He's like, oh, the cell phone must have been dropped by someone in that commotion earlier. And he's like, that bastard. He's the one that got it. Oh my God. He's like, hello? This is Misa's cell phone, so I'll just give it back to her. He's like, oh, I see. I understand. you all don't, well, you all do understand how many screenshots, you can hear it as I'm clicking, how many screenshots I'm taking from this. This is one of the best. I keep saying, what's my favorite episode? Every damn episode of this series has been amazing. And it's so hard for me to pick a favorite because they're all so damn good. It's like, he's like, oh, I understand. Here you go. And then he's like, bye. And so he's like, he probably thinks that he's won, but she has another phone. And I love that he's, again, the 4D chess here, if I call that one. Oh, this time it's my cell phone. And here's the thing, Light, you could have just, curiosity killed the cat. But again, he could have called Misa in that moment, but then he would have found out that she'd been taken into custody, like alongside what Elle's about to tell him. So I guess it wouldn't have mattered if he'd called her in this moment or not, but he wants to see what happened. We did it. Like, he just gloated in that moment to Light. We did it. I understand. And he's saying, this may come as good and bad news to you. I love it, but Miss Amani has been taken into custody under suspicion of being the second Kira. I love that Light's like, the fudge! What in the world did he find out about Misa? I never thought he'd catch her this quickly. He's like, there were hairs and fibers, among other things, that were on the tape, attached to the masking tape and sealing the tapes for the second Kira. We discovered many matching samples of evidence in her room. There will probably be a riot if we charge her with being the second Kira. Right, so we're telling the public she's volunteering coming with us because her manager is suspected of drug possession. So, okay, so let's just back up and go over that just a second. So they pinned drug possession on Yoshi. So that lady's whole career might be ruined because they took her into custody. I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, the truth will never go public. So hiding the truth. So we're gonna put little notes here. So hiding the truth. Okay. So in hiding the truth, gotcha. Okay. Sure thing. That seems a little bit interesting, right? And so then and then Light's like, I was careless. I should have destroyed all of the evidence. He's like, in the end, Ryuga chose to protect himself by being with me instead of hiding. Like, yeah. He's like, he confronted to the heart of the matter. And so then he goes to leap. He's like, this wager is my... And then we see how he sees Elle. It's a concrete slab with nothing on any side and just looking down at him. But I love that as Light is about to give up, he's like, no! And then we see his version of Elle being like, what? He's like, I'm not giving up. Yeah. And you you want to root for Light in this moment because Light he almost gives up. But you want to almost root for him despite it all, despite everything, despite knowing everything about Kira and Light. You almost want to root for him because you don't want it to end. And you're like, come on, Light, you're better than that. You feel like rooting for both of them. It's like, oh, he's like, not yet. This challenge is just beginning, Elle. He's like, no, you think you've got me cornered? No, we're just starting. Like, this is just round one. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, Light is like, Light, he is not giving up. I like that he is not giving up and that the challenge is just starting. Okay. God, this episode is amazing. I love it. And so then I like that Light goes here, or Elle goes here, says, Tari, has she said anything? And he says, no, nothing yet. So at this part of the visual, he says, are you sure? At this point, Elle is bound and determined. Elle is so close. He's been so close this entire series. But Elle is like, I've been so close to nailing Light in this. No pun intended. And I want to get her to confess. If she can confess, it's over. Everything is over, right? The problem is that up until now, everything that Elle has done has been pretty much kosher. The only thing that was kind of the only thing that was like clue number one of Elle being kind of similar to Light and doing questionable things was Lind L. Taylor, who was the criminal that was used to try and get a goad at Light. Yeah, I know a lot of people have commented being like, well, he killed Lind L. Taylor and got him killed. And it's like, yeah, that is true. That should have been flag number one, right? But I like that Watari questions if Elle wants to show their quote-unquote methods. And he's like, yeah. And he says yes quickly. And they're like, okay. And it's pretty jarring that they are torturing Misa. They're torturing Misa for information, right? So they have her face blocked where she can't see anybody to be able to kill them. They have her in a straitjacket, and not just a straitjacket, but they have like the straps and everything like riding up on her crotch. Like that's yeah, it's a bit much. It's very uncomfortable, right? And he's like, if there was enough evidence in Amani's room to mark her as a second Kira, but he's like, there's no mistake. Now all we have to do is make her tell us how she kills, whether she knows Kira and if she knows who he is. So they're like, we need to know how she kills, if she's second Kira, if she knows who Kira is. So, well, that's the thing too. He wants to find out, the three things he wants to know is how she kills, I'm going to rewrite knows here, if she knows Kira, and there's a distinction, if she knows Kira, and also if she knows Kira's identity. So there's two things, because it's kind of like Elle is viewing her relationship with Light, with Kira, like him himself. He thinks that Kira is doing the same thing he does, being like, okay, do they know the methods, which we're learning from Elle here? Does she know Kira himself? And does she know Kira's real name? That's the thing. God. He's like, take proper precautions, but do whatever needs to be done. I don't care what. He's like, yes. Also, he's like, Mr. Yagami, I'm probably going to call Light in as a prime suspect. You should be prepared for that. So he's gonna call Light in. Okay. All right. Gonna call my friend in, I'm gonna call them in to see all this. Whatever goes down with that. And he's like, So yeah, oh my God. But here's the thing, the power of love. And they're like getting a bunch of drugs and stuff ready to like drug her and torture her. I'm like, it's definitely, I'm like, okay, Elle. Okay. You really, all right, this is how we're going to do it, huh? I see. Like, it is questionable, and I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say I didn't like this at all, because it is torture, and it's not just questioning Misa, right? It's not just questioning her. It is physically, chemically torturing her, and I'm not about that. So it's interesting to see the dark side of Elle here, that his obsession is similar to Light's obsession, and that both of these characters are doing very questionable things in the name of the justice that they're seeking. So, interesting, right? Very interesting. And I feel for Misa, because she did not ask for this, really. She was just pursuing everything in the name of love. And then seeing Light in the black shirt, and him questioning what's going to happen. But she doesn't cave. She does not. And he's like, give me the visuals quickly. I love that they're all just sitting there. And he zooms himself into the couch and like gets there after 3 days. And she just says for them to kill her. She can't take it anymore. But she's asking Rim to kill her. She's asking Rim to do it. Hurry up and kill me. And I like that. And they're like, I guess it was too much for a young girl. And Elle's like, I don't buy that at all. There's something up. He's like, no, that wouldn't be it. So she is asked to kill Misa. And she doesn't want to do it. bless Rim's little heart. She doesn't want to do it. And I like how fierce Elle looks in this, where he's like, no. He's like, she must be at her limit. And then he speaks to it. And it's the same equipment that we've seen. So this is where she's being tortured at, is in the room that Elle's been at the early part of this series. Wherever she's in, that she's being held up at and being tortured, that's the room that Elle was in at the start of the series. So that's curious. That, I'm assuming that's at his estate, maybe? Oh no. He's like, can you hear me? I can hear you. Please kill me now. And he says, is it because you admit to being the second Kira? But she's like, I don't know anything about the second Kira. I can't take this anymore. I'd rather die. Just hurry up and kill me. You should be able to kill me immediately, right? And she's talking to Rim. And poor Rim, because Rim likes Misa. Rim's like, I don't want to kill you. She's like, do you want me to kill you? And she says, yes, kill me. Which, the funny thing is, nobody listening would know that she's talking to Rim in that moment. She's like, I can't take it anymore. It's like, And she's like, if I kill you, I will kill Light Yagami because he's the one that got you into this mess. And she's like, no, kill me. And Rim's like, Misa, you want so badly to die for him. So, yep, she wants to die for Light. Power of love, huh? And it kind of goes back to her saying what a beautiful way to kill, to get someone to love you so much they'd sacrifice themselves for you. It kind of ties to her own feelings of Light. It's like, damn it. Ugh. And she's like, that's it. If you won't kill me. And he's like, no, not good, Watari. Don't let her bite her tongue. Don't let her do it. And he has to gag her. And just the noise that she makes when she's being gagged is disturbing. Very disturbing. He's like, could it be that these are just the actions controlled by Kira before death? So he's so obsessed. He's just, at this point, Elle is like, so is Kira preventing her from spilling anything? And it's just actions. It's almost like Elle's trying to cover himself. Here's the thing that's crazy. Elle's trying to cover himself in that moment, being like, is this just the will of Kira, like making her be silent until she dies? And he says it out loud so that the others can hear him and question it themselves. But the fact of the matter is that neither Light nor Elle truly understand that Misa is doing this out of love. And that's the most disturbing part about it all. It's like, oh my God. Wow. Okay. And Rim has enough. Rim's like, but all this, Rim is coming to them now because Light can see her. Rim is coming to her now after the death note's been given up. That's how she can leave Misa. And he's like, what's this all of a sudden? Ryuk asks that. And she's like, Light Yagami. I offered to help Misa escape, but she refused. She probably thought it would get you into trouble, since the police think she has special powers. And when she was at her wit's end, God, Rim's like, I just can't take it. She's like, I couldn't kill her. This is because she wants you to love her. I love that Rim tells him this. She's like, she just wanted your love. That's why she's suffering. Light probably does not care. But she was like, no matter how much she asked, I couldn't kill her. I couldn't bear watching her. There was only one way to save her from that suffering. And he's like, you made her forfeit the ownership of the Death Note. So I wonder, Light seems to think that this was a conclusion he was reaching as well. So I'm sure that as soon as Light figured out that Rim had an attachment to Misa, he probably concluded this was going to be something that would happen down the line. But, damn. She's like, that's right. If she forfeits ownership of it, then all memories related to the Death Note will disappear. So everything she's found out through her Shinigami eyes, gone, including Elle's name. And then all memories of murders she committed with her book and the fact that you are Kira will disappear. Misa will not reveal your secret. Wow. And Misa will no longer be able to see Ryuk or me. Poor girl. And so, yeah, that's where she's like, you will forget everything about Shinigami. And she's like, I don't want to do that. And she's like, it's all right. The human you love is Light Yagami. She said, your memories of him may fade, but your emotions will remain. So that's important to note. That is important to note that memories fade, but your emotions remain. So it's almost like the memories are tied to your mind, but your emotions are tied to your soul. So your memories, the mind may get erased of what you knew of the Death Note, but everything you felt in your heart is going to be there. So she's like, you'll still love Light. Those emotions won't change. You're just going to forget me and the Death Note. And she's like, oh. She's like, forfeit the ownership. Like, Rim just tells her to do it. And leave everything to Light. And she says, yeah. And then her crying, oh my gosh, like her crying in that moment. Ugh. God, that's so sad. I can't believe she gave it up already. I wondered if she'd either die or give it up eventually, but I didn't think it'd be this soon. And I love that Rim goes and wipes the tear from her eye. I wondered if Rim was gonna like do something to take the notebook away in that moment, if there was some gesture she had to do, but she was wiping the tear away. But when she wipes the tear away, she caught her hair, and L saw it. He noticed it and was like, I love his little head tilt, like, what was that? So he saw Rim wiping the tear. So he noticed the gesture, right? He noticed it, damn it. And so in that moment, he noticed it, and Rim, she took ownership of the Death Note back. Man. Ah! Damn it. And that's it. And now she won't remember anything about it. Just that she's being tortured. So Misa no longer owns the Death Note. It's in Light's possession. He's like, you did well, Rim. I'm like, you did well, huh? I was beginning to think that that was the only way. If her memories of the Death Note are erased, then it's not impossible to get Misa released. And she's like, I proposed this to Misa under that, because I knew this is the method you would have most desired. So Rim's pretty smart. Rim's like, I figured that you wouldn't want Misa to be involved with the Death Note anymore. So I got her to go along with this because I know you're smart. I hate you, but you're smart, and you can get her released. God, Rim. And she points to him. She's like, if you don't save Misa, I'll kill you. I love Rim just being like, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill you. So here's the thing. Light goes, okay. I love that Light's like, that's fine. I understand, Rim. He's like, I have a good idea of what Elle's going to do next. So I have a plan. But then he says, this is goodbye, Ryuk. And Ryuk's like, what? I love Ryuk's like, wait, what? What's happening? So I have a theory based on that. It's probably wrong. I'm probably not going to wait to watch episode 16 because I want to know what the plan is going to be, and I don't want any spoilers or any of y'all to spoil me. So probably going to watch that a lot sooner than I expected. But after this episode, I got to, right? So I think that Light's plan, he has 2 Death Notes now in his possession. He has Misa's Death Note, and he has the one that Ryuk gave him. Here is the thing. Rim will cooperate. Rim will cooperate and help for the sake of others. If it's to save Misa, if it's to help people that Rim cares about, Rim will cooperate. She's an emotional Shinigami. Ryuk is completely neutral. Ryuk's not helping Light at all. Ryuk wants to just see things through. He's just there to cure his own boredom, but he's not going to help Light no matter what. He's established that over and over again. So here's what I think Light's going to do. Light is going to keep Misa's Death Note, and in turn, keep Rim with him. And I think he's going to give L Ryuk's Death Note. That's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to give Elle Ryuk. Because here's the deal. At this point, Elle being so close and taking this gamble and revealing all this information to the task force, Elle's done some questionable things in this episode that would point to him being suspicious, right? Him torturing Misa, but also him like doing these questionable things, like doing stuff that's kind of more of and suspecting Light, right? So I'm wondering if Light is going to try to pin Elle as being Kira. And it's like, no, you're Kira, not me. Like, you're just trying to pin the blame on me and get me executed. Like, no, you're just trying to pin this all on me, but you're actually him. And Misa was just covering, and Misa's just, she's an innocent that you brought in to try to pin everything on her being the second Kira. I think Light is going to try to spin all of this and make Elle the one that's suspected of Kira, being Kira. I think that's what's going to happen. Now, the question is, I think maybe Light won't give Elle Ryuk's that death note, because that would maybe, now that I think about it, he probably won't give Elle Ryuk's death note, because that would be giving Elle all of the information that he would need to know how it works, and that would make him instantly want to pin Light. But he could be like, okay, well, you can't pin me as Kira because that would also out you. I'll reveal that we both have death notes and we're both in this together. You don't want that to happen. So I don't know. It could either go one of three ways. I think that one, Light is going to try to make Elle be the suspect as Kira and use the fact that Misa is now an innocent and they took Misa into custody under false charges and violated her human rights as a means of suspicion, and that he was trying to pin everything on Light as a means of suspicion. So I'm going to think it's either going to be that. He's either going to try to just pin the fact, either the other death note is not going to be involved, and he's just going to try to convince everybody that Elle is Kira. Two, he's going to give Elle... Now, in that first scenario, going back to that first scenario, if he's just trying to pin Elle as Kira and trying to get him and Misa off the hook, I think he's going to release Ryuk. He's going to see that Ryuk is no longer needed. He's going to keep Rim around because Rim will cooperate, and he'll be like, Ryuk, I don't need you anymore. You take the death note back. I don't want this one anymore. I've got my own now. Okay, bye. You're not much help. Because Light has never said that he's attached to anybody, and poor Ryuk will be like, well, what do you mean we're not friends anymore? Light, come on, no, keep me around. And Light will be like, no, I got Rim. We're good. So that's scenario number one. Scenario number two is that Light is going to give the death note, and thus he's going to give the death note to Elle so that he can see Ryuk and try to throw Elle into a panic, and also use it as a means to suspect Elle of being Kira and try to release him and Misa off the hook. And Ryuk's going to be just stuck, and he'll tell Ryuk to hang around with Elle instead. And Ryuk is neutral, so Light knows that Ryuk was not going to tell Elle anything. So there's that. So maybe that's option number two. Or option three, he is going to try to get rid of Ryuk, keep Rim around, try to convince everybody that Elle is Kira, not him or Misa, and Ryuk, being the chaotic troll that he is going to give the death note to Elle to muck things up. So I think it's one of those three scenarios. I think that Ryuk is going to either end up with Elle one way or the other, but I want that to happen at this point. If he's going to say goodbye to Ryuk, if he's like telling Ryuk he's no longer involved with him, I want Ryuk to go find Elle. I want that to happen, but I don't know if that's going to happen or what's going to be the deal. I don't know, but there's no way at this point that I can wait for episode 16. So I'm going to look at the comments that I've not answered for episode 15. I'm going to look at those, or episodes 14 rather, on Patreon, and episode 13 on YouTube. I'm going to look at those, the ones that are remaining, and I'm gonna go ahead and watch episode 16. So I'm sorry you'll have to wait a week, but there's no way I can wait now. I gotta know before anybody tries to spoil it for me. So sorry, but I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no hints, spoilers, clues. Going into this blind has been the most amazing experience, and I want to keep that up. So in the meantime, I am excited to hear your comments about this episode below. Spoiler tag if you need to. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and God, yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 16 of Death Note.